So you mentioned playing overseas, and you are in Istanbul right
Yep.
now, right? Okay, so in Turkey now playing. Um, I don't even know, like what is that like to play in the W? I assume you get a couple weeks off, and then you're right back playing um, overseas. Like, when do you guys rest? I just feel like you guys are always
The age
playing.
old question. When do we rest? We really don't. I think I had a week. I think I had a week between seasons.
Oh, okay, so I
Um,
overestimated. It wasn't a couple weeks; it was a week.
it's usually people get usually between 5 and 10 days based on their
Oh, my
contracts.
goodness.
Um, it's not ideal,
Yeah.
but I think especially for like the younger players, I really do think it's a good opportunity because
Hmm.
a lot of times in the pros, like the vets kind of take over, and like
Hmm.
rookies don't really get a huge chance. Like your opportunity is pretty slim, and so I think for a lot of younger players, they feel like they can work on things and get their confidence overseas, and then come back to the W stronger. The issue is just kind of rest, because like there are a couple of breaks, like for national team breaks and stuff like that, that are built in, but there really aren't that many.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when this season ends, kind of depends on the country that you're in when it
Hmm.
ends. But usually you're heading straight into training camp, or sometimes you miss training camp if your team is playing in playoffs. So there's really not a lot of rest time. I mean, the W is trying to incentivize people to not play overseas for
Yeah.
that reason. People get injured. Um, people are coming back to their W teams not healthy, and so that's why we're seeing a lot more of like the league marketing deals and team and players staying in their market, trying to do stuff with their teams, and gain money that way.
Yeah.
But there's also, because we play in the summer, it's a lot longer off season than other sports.
Right.
So to not play overseas at all is kind of a risk too, because it's like, am I really just only going to be training for however many months? And
Hmm.
it's different playing team basketball than doing skill work.
Absolutely, for
So
sure.
it's like you kind of have to find this balance even within yourself, and as you learn what's important to you, over your career, of like, do I play overseas? Do I play a full season overseas? Do I take a cut to only play a portion
Hmm.
overseas, or do I like make a big chunk of money and miss some of my W season? So it's definitely a balancing act.
Yeah. What are some of the differences in the game um, between the W and playing overseas?
Um, well, for one, the rules are different because you're playing international rules. So like, there's no defensive 3 seconds.
Hmm.
The
Which is great for
referees
you.
are, yeah, it's great for me. I block way more shots out
Yeah.
here. And the bigger post players love it. They don't have to be. They could literally just stand in the paint the whole time.
Hmm.
The referees here, like, in the NBA and the WNBA, like you can't hand check. Like you
Hmm.
got to let these guards play. Overseas, like they got their hands all over you. You
Yeah.
can. That's why I think, I feel like Luka Doncic said something like it's easier to score in the NBA or something, just because he has a lot more freedom of
Yeah.
movement. Rather in EuroLeague, they let you like kind of hound and beat
Hmm.
each other up. Um, so there are some adjustments there, and just like the style of play, and um, lot. I mean, now in the NBA and WNBA, more people are shooting, but generally speaking, like Europeans, everybody's shooting.
Hmm.
1 through 5, and you have to adjust your play that way. Um, so yeah, it's just like a couple differences.
Yeah. So when you come back to the W, does it take a week or two before you like stop fouling people all the time, or are you all right?
I think the biggest thing, I I always appreciate the timeout. There's so many more media timeouts
Oh
in
yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
States, so I'm like, oh, I'll take this break. Um, but yeah, sometimes I forget about defensive three when I come back,
Hmm.
just because like it's just not something you're actively thinking about a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
yeah.
so see a lot of W players are kind of doing. different things off the court, TV. I know Chennai does a lot of stuff with ESPN. I think I saw Chelsea was doing some stuff on TV.
Yeah, she's doing some broadcasting, I believe. Yeah.
Is there anything that interests you off the court to maybe bridge that gap between W seasons?
I mean, I've never really wanted to do broadcasting. Like people always think like, oh, like you should get into it. That's not really been my thing. I try to stay pretty busy though. Like I'm on our executive committee of our union, so that keeps me busy because we have to talk about social justice stuff. We talk about the COVID protocols. Like I think that's going to be our next call because we're seeing what's happening in the NBA and NFL, and like when we come back, like we don't want to repeat any of the issues that they've had.
Yeah.
So being involved with that kind of off the court stuff has actually kind of kept me pretty busy. And I think if I were to like play a half season overseas or something I've been really passionate about has been public health and medicine. And so talking about vaccines, talking about player health and safety, things like that. So I think that's kind of where I would bridge the gap a little.
Yeah. You mentioned COVID protocols. So I got to ask, what was the Wubble like? You're our first Wubble member who's come on, so I got to ask what that was like.
Yeah. Honestly, it was fine. Like for what it had to be, like it did its job. We had, so you could either live in the hotel or you could live in like basically like apartments. And I chose to live in like an apartment place. So we had our own individual room, but we just shared like a living space. And I preferred that because we could make our own food if we didn't want to eat like the food that was provided.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit more homey than being in a hotel for however many months, which was nice. But it was pretty much just basketball all the time because we played more games because they didn't want us in there forever. So we're playing almost every other day. Got tested every single day.
Yeah.
And at least
the nose one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't the deep one.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, or else I think my nose would have been bleeding so much.
Man, I hated that thing, and I only did it like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, "This is the worst thing ever."
Yeah, those deep ones are different. But we tested every day. We had meals provided for us every day. If you, like I said, if you were in the lodges or apartments, you could cook when you wanted. But yeah, because we're playing almost every other day, it was like eat, sleep, breathe basketball pretty much. So in your free time, your off days, like people go to the pool, chill out, because IMG's campus had kind of pretty much everything. Like if you wanted to go golfing on an off day, you could.
Did you pick up golf?
We did have one day where we played some golf. Okay. I'm not very good.
Well, none of us are.
I've taken some lessons though, so I can.
There you go.
I know like the basics, but I think everybody tried to like make the most out of it. The hardest was just being away from my families,
Yeah.
Like we were just glad everyone was safe, I think the hardest part was leaving because it's like, dang, now we have to go back to the real world. Like we could get away with not wearing our mask just because we tested every day and you're around the same people, but then it was like, dang, we got to go back to the reality of this pandemic that's not any better than before we got in here.
Right.